Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of All Around Hockey, the YouTube channel for the all around hockey fan. So today we're continuing on with our series and looking at all 32 NHL teams, previewing the upcoming season. As the offseason started to kind of die down a little bit, we kind of just a little bit of fun experiment we use here. We just did the Carolina Hurricanes recently. We've done like the Buffalo Sabres, Calgary Flames, Boston Bruins, Anaheim Ducks. If you haven't checked out those videos, please go check this one out, those ones out too. But today we're continuing on with our series with the Chicago Blackhawks, a team that's made quite a bit of stir this offseason, quite a bit of big moves this offseason, especially recently with the addition of Patrick Kane. They made the big trade at the draft with Bowen Byram going to the Buffalo, or around the draft, going to the Chicago Blackhawks from the Buffalo Sabres for the 4th overall pick. Pretty controversial move at the time for them as well. And then they signed him to a big contract. So continuing on with this series, we kind of use Puckpedia here to look over the roster that they have currently, and then kind of go use Puck GM to see what other moves the team could possibly still make. And then we also use Hockey Reference to look over all the stats from last season, how they did, and kind of look at what they can build off from last season going into this upcoming season. And sometimes we make some moves that could be a little bit outdated now. If you go to the Buffalo series, there's one where I had Patrick Kane going to Buffalo. Now, of course, he's signed with the Chicago Blackhawks. So things change here and there. It's just a little bit of fun thing we're doing. And love to hear from you guys if those are moves you still think could still be made as the offseason continues. But as we look now here, we got the young, up-and-coming Chicago Blackhawks. And as you can see, the biggest glaring hole here is up the middle where there's no Connor Bedard. Obviously, he is down over here at the injured reserve. He just obviously had his shoulder surgery recently. He's going to be out for the first month of season. So that's going to be something that Chicago is going to have to deal with for a pretty young team going into the season. But you can see the top line here. They have Tyler Bertuzzi, who had a big year for them. He signed with them a couple of years ago at a $5.5 million cap hit. Not terrible. He's obviously played in the Jeff Blashill system before and has been pretty successful as he plays the first line minutes there. Frank Nazar there. They signed him to his extension there. It's a pretty good contract for a young up-and-coming player. There's obviously Patrick Kane, who signed his 2-year, $8 million per season contract to return home to the Chicago Blackhawks after a couple-year stint with the Detroit Red Wings. Ryan Donato there is the second unit at $4 million. Anton Frondell's a winger that they picked a couple years ago. They're going to transfer him over to center, see how he does there. Roman Kantsirov is another player they drafted in the second round a couple years ago, and a lot of people have a lot of high hopes that he could be really productive after he had a big year in the KHL. Teuvo Teravainen is still there at a $5.4 million contract, and he's going on the last year of his contract there. Oliver Moore is another first-round pick they had a couple years ago. Nick Lardis was pretty productive for them when he came up. And then Cole Smith, who they signed from Vegas at a 3-year, $3 million contract per season. Ryan Green there is another one of the younger prospects there. And then Jordan Greenway, who they got along with Bowen Byram on the defense. They switched to the defense. Of course, they made that big trade in which they traded the 4th overall pick. Chicago's had a lot of lottery luck lately, and they use that to their advantage, acquiring Bowen Byram, who they're kind of hoping becomes that number one defenseman, as they paid him number one defenseman when he gets a 6-year, $12.5 million contract extension there. So that's going to be big for them. I think that kicks in next season. Sam Renzel's another one of their top defensive prospects. Alexander Vlasic's there still at a 4.6, pretty solid top 4 defenseman, young, big body there. Ian Cole, they signed in free agency at a 1-year, $4 million contract. Wyatt Kaiser, and then Artem Lashunov, another one of the top 5 picks that they've had recently in the drafts. And then Kevin Korchinski, somebody who's an RFA who they're hoping to get signed. They still have Andrew Mangiapane, Landon Slagert there. So pretty good offensive depth there. And then Spencer Knight is the goaltender, number one option, 25 years old still, and didn't have a terrible season for them last year. And then Arvid Soderblom's the backup there. and he's an okay backup there. And we'll look over their numbers now that we've kind of looked over the roster. As we scroll up here and see how they did last season. They had 29 wins, 39 losses, 14 overtime losses for 72 points. They finished last in the Central Division, one of the tougher divisions in the league there. So they traded Nick Foligno, and they traded away some of their guys as they continue with their rebuild. Their biggest glaring issue, obviously, is right here. Their goals for was 210 to their goals against, which is 270. Both were close to the bottom of the league there. So having a hard time scoring and having a hard time keeping the puck out of the net is gonna not work out too well for you. But Connor Bedard led the team in points, 75 points in 69 games played. Again, he's going to be injured at the start of the season. He's having a hard time staying on the ice. So, that kind of hurts them a little bit. But, he still is that franchise centerman they're hoping for. And now they brought in a pretty good scoring, an assist playmaker there with Patrick Kane to help them out. Could they add another one? We'll go over that a little bit later. Tyler Bertuzzi had a good year, 32, led the team in goals with 32 goals and 58 points. Frank Nazar, another person they're really hoping is going to step up while Bedard's injured, as he probably takes that first-line center role. Ilya Mikheyev, they lost to Tampa Bay. Teuvo Teravainen there had 35 points for them, 75 games played. Again, not the production really hoping for somebody who's making $5.4 million. Andre Burakovsky, they traded to Ottawa, so he's not going to be there. Ryan Donato, 30 points there. Can be a decent top 9 forward there. Ryan Green had a good rookie campaign there, 29 points. Again, could be some production there at the bottom. Louis Curvier, they traded to Buffalo, and then Artem Lashinov there rounds up the top 10 in terms of points. And then you look at the goaltending, like we said, Spencer Knight going in his age 25 season, he ended up with 19 wins, 25 losses, at a .902 save percentage and a 282 goals against average. Pretty decent numbers for a number one. And I obviously hope he takes that next step to become an elite goalie in the league. Arvid Soderblom, somebody who didn't play that often, about 26 games, probably what you're going to normally see is 25 to 30 starts out of him. And he had an 880 save percentage and a 3.80 goals against average. Not too bad for a backup. Maybe a little bit better you're hoping for him there, but he's young, like Spencer as well. And then Drew Commesso is the third goalie that they got coming up the ranks. So now is here we kind of look at, is there any other moves the team could make as the season comes around? Is there other moves that they could possibly be looking at come the trade deadline? Stuff we kind of look at. We kind of have a little bit of fun here on Puck GM with Puckpedia. Again, it's a great tool to use if you're kind of hoping to see what else your team could do through this offseason. It is kind of dying down a little bit, but obviously there's still some big moves here and there still to be made. As you can see, they still have a 2.8, a little bit, just a little bit under $3 million in cap space. So not a whole lot of cap space to work with now that they got Kane signed. But they got plenty of good draft capital. They have 3 first-round picks. This Oiler ones, I think, is a compensatory pick, so it could possibly move it down to 2028 and they have 2 first-rounders then. They got 2 really good second-rounders this upcoming season, with Vancouver being one of them, and then obviously their own. And so they could have 2 really solid second-round picks going into next season. And then 2 third-round picks with Tampa's. They have their 4th. They don't have a 5th, 2 6th, and I think that 6th they got in the Andre Burakovsky move, and then a 7th rounder. So they have pretty decent draft capital going into this season, which is pretty beneficial. Could they use that draft capital to make a big move? Maybe, but I don't know if it's a team that is really in the line to make a big move or make that big jump right now. Some people maybe thought about Alex DeBrincat going back there. Patrick Kane's there, but that's going to be a big trade package that would probably have to center around Frank Nazar, and you kind of need Frank Nazar right now. Also, some people thought, could Dylan want to go play with Patrick there, Dylan Larkin? I doubt he would accept a trade to Chicago. Just kind of the situation they're in right now. But like we said, looking at the current lineup, it's not the worst. It's young. It's going to have a hard time competing in the Central Division with teams like Colorado, Minnesota, Nashville. Winnipeg's is kind of iffy on what they're going to do. Nashville's still pretty decent. Minnesota, Dallas, and then Colorado obviously won the President's Trophy last year. So St. Louis has kind of started their rebuild, and Utah made the playoffs last season. So it's going to be a tough division to do much of anything. And especially with Bedard out for at least the first month, it's gonna be a big test for a young team to begin the season. Obviously, they'd probably like to get Gorchinski signed. He probably wouldn't require much to get him locked up for the year, and to be another decent defenseman. So you kind of look at them, and they've still been trying to add big scorers. Obviously, Bertuzzi had a 32-goal season for them last year. They're hoping Nazar maybe takes that jump. Now with Patrick Kane, could that help the power play out a little bit? They have, Donato and Teravainen didn't provide much production for them. Anton Frandel is going to be taking a big step in transitioning to center. And Roman Kanserov, could he be a potential Calder trophy candidate? So maybe they could still add a pretty decent scorer, and there's been somebody linked to them a little bit that I think would be a good fit, and that would be Patrick Laine. He obviously didn't play much in Montreal. There's the rumors that he's interested in a PTO with the Islanders, but maybe Davidson can call him up and give him a guaranteed NHL contract for this season, and become a nice right-handed shot there on the right side. On the power play, I think that would be a pretty decent move for them. But obviously, right now, with the way things are, that him and Kane could provide a pretty decent power play unit with Bedard, and so. But obviously, Frank Nazar could also fit there too. Just somebody I thought to throw out there a little bit. He's had experience being a big time goal scorer. It's not much of a risk taking him on a 1-year contract. He's probably not going to require much more than $1 million. Be honest with you, to bring in, and just provides another scoring depth winger there, who could be a big addition for a young team like Chicago. You kind of look at the team as it is now. If they brought in Laine, right now, obviously they're without Bedard, but when Bedard does come back, could they move? They don't have much in terms of cap space. Could they move a Teuvo Teravainen? And one team I thought about would be maybe interested in him, since they're on the mend of possibly trading a bigger winger, is the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I kind of looked over at them to see if they might have something interesting that might entice Chicago to make a move. Like I said, Teravainen wasn't the most productive winger, but he wouldn't be a bad addition to a team like Columbus. But you're probably not getting too much in return at the end of the day. I thought maybe a decent prospect they could ask for is maybe a Luke Tuck, and then maybe they could try to get a 4th-round pick either this year or next year's draft to add to that. Teravainen's on last year's contract, so maybe they would only ask like a 4th or 5th in this year's draft. But I thought maybe that'd be a decent trade. Clears up some cap space. That's probably not a trade that happens now, but maybe like towards the middle of the season. When Bedard does come back and is productive, then obviously Bedard would move up here back into the starting unit. You could maybe run out a first unit of Kane, Bertuzzi, and Bedard. You could have move Kanser up over to the left side, possibly even have him on that first unit there, and have Kane play with the youngsters, and have Bertuzzi with Frundell and Nazar. That'd be a pretty productive second line. Oliver Moore there with Ryan Donato and Nick Lardis might be a pretty decent third. And then, you could probably have Laine and Greenway and Cole Smith flipping back and forth on that 4th unit with Ryan Green. And so, it's not the most sexiest pickups in the whole world, but also it's not too bad of pickups at the end of the day. And in my opinion, I think it provides a little bit more scoring depth, if Line has more chances to succeed there, maybe it wouldn't be that bad of a pickup for Chicago. But you'll have to let me know what you guys think about it in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to All Around Hockey, the YouTube channel for the All Around Hockey fan. We're going to be continuing on with this series. In our next episode, we go over the defending President Trophy winning Colorado Avalanche, a team that's in Chicago's division, obviously. So Chicago fans might want to keep up with that as well. But let me know what you guys think now that Kane's back. Are you happy now that Kane's back? Do you guys have a little bit more faith the team could be a little bit more productive this season? Do you think Patrick Laine would be a good, decent pickup for Bedard as well? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.